From time to time, I get asked questions or I have comments from viewers that really pique my interest if it's something I potentially haven't thought about or I want to dissect a bit further, and it generally sparks an idea for a video. So when I received this question from Jan Moeller, should Pat Williams be held more accountable for single-digit scoring games, far too many in my opinion, which I agree with you by the way, or should Arturas be held accountable for using a top 4 pick on Patrick Williams? Understanding he's young, but should we be expecting more or less out of him? And I wanted to talk about that in this video because I've been receiving more and more questions and comments around Patrick Williams recently and his decreased level of productivity, yet he still remains in the starting lineup. So let's talk about that more and try to make sense of this. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Guys, real quick, in case you missed my last video, I mentioned that I will be traveling for the next few weeks starting tomorrow. I'll actually be traveling most of the month of May to see my family, who I haven't seen in a long time due to the pandemic, so I likely won't be uploading as consistently as you're used to seeing, but I'll still be uploading periodically. Just wanted to mention that in case you were curious as to why the content has decreased. It's not because the Bulls are doing poorly, although you would think I should probably be a little less motivated to make videos about a team that has been playing the way that the Bulls have recently, but no, it's just because my family is my priority and I want to spend time with them as much as I can. At the end of the day, I love basketball, but it is just a sport after all. But anyway, back to the topic at hand, and that's Patrick Williams. So I know most of you know this already, but just a quick background on how the Bulls came about selecting Patrick Williams with the number 4 pick in the NBA draft, which, keep in mind, the Bulls moved up for that pick. They were initially slated to go around the number 7 spot based on where they finished in the standings, and they were able to get lucky and move into the top 4. Hopefully that ends up being the case this year as well, otherwise we're kind of screwed. But after the Bulls had landed the number 4 pick, there was obviously speculation on who the Bulls would potentially take. It was basically a foregone conclusion that Edwards, Wiseman, and LaMelo Ball would go in the top 3 in some order, and the rest was sort of unknown from there. I think most speculated the Bulls would potentially go after Deni Avdija, the playmaking wing from Israel. There was Luka Doncic comparisons made to them, although I never really felt that that was a fair comparison at all for Luka's sake. I actually did expect the Bulls would take Avdija, but as we got closer to the draft, this 19-year-old kid, Patrick Williams' stock started to rise dramatically. And I'll be honest, I had actually never heard of Patrick Williams until about a week before the draft, partially because I don't follow college basketball, but also because he wasn't even within any kind of range to where the Bulls would be drafting. I believe he was generally anticipated to go between late lottery and mid-first round up until the last couple weeks leading up to the draft. So when the Bulls had selected Patrick Williams number 4 overall, I won't lie, I was pretty skeptical. I felt that it was a huge reach to take him at number 4 over the other guys who were available on the board. And I also felt that it was, a guy that if they truly wanted him, why not trade down for him in the draft to get more and get something else still and get your guy at, say, the number 7 or number 8 pick. But according to reports, it sounds like more and more teams were taking note of Patrick Williams, and the Bulls didn't want to risk trading down for him and then having him selected right after their pick, right before their pick. But either way, it turned out to be a solid pick right off the bat because Patrick, although a project and he would still take time to develop, clearly possessed the skills and tools to become an outstanding NBA player. I mean, physically speaking, when you just look at some of his pre-draft highlights, the guy has already, an NBA ready physique type body. So I grew to like the draft selection more and more, and I'll be honest, I still really like this pick. For the Bulls long term, I do firmly believe he will be one of the best players from this draft class when all is said and done. So his lower productivity, most recently, or a slump, whatever you want to call it, doesn't change my view on him and his potential at all for the future. Now, as for this question specifically though, should we be holding Patrick more accountable for his lower scoring? Considering more often than not, we tend to give him a pass because he's a rookie, he's 19, he didn't have a summer league, didn't have a full training camp, he's still trying to adapt to the NBA in the face of a pandemic, which applies to all the rookies this season. But I feel because of all this, we're quick to give Patrick Williams a pass. But should we start holding him more accountable for the way that he has been playing more recently, when in fact we really need him in these final games, and especially with Zach Lavine being out? Or the other part of the question, should we be holding Arturas accountable for using a top 4 pick on this guy? Maybe he was just never meant to be drafted that high, and that's a mistake on the front office for selecting a mid-first rounder so high in the draft. Well, I'll tell you guys my perspective, and then I would love to get your thoughts on the matter. I don't think it's either. I don't think you can hold Patrick Williams accountable, or Arturas accountable for that matter. The person that needs to be held accountable for Williams' most recent performance is Billy Donovan. I mean, yes, some of it is on Patrick. I mean, he is the one playing the game. Billy Donovan isn't. But honestly, I don't think that Billy Donovan has been utilizing him properly. Too often we see Patrick just standing on the wing behind the three-point line, trying to create space on offense when he should be having the ball in his hands more often, giving him the green light to be more aggressive and getting to the hoop, putting more mid-range jumpers up, cutting to the basket. Don't worry about putting up threes. You can focus on that later in your career. Play the game that you're most comfortable with. I mean, you look at some of the highlights that I'm showing here right now, which granted, this was a pickup game between some other NBA players shortly before the season. I mean, his handles are actually incredible, and the smoothness at which he plays and getting to the basket is also great. I know it's not an NBA game, and obviously the level of intensity on the defensive end goes up significantly in an NBA game versus a pickup game, but clearly he has the tools and ability to be playing with this kind of aggressiveness and ball handling, but we're just not seeing that in these games right now, right? I do think Patrick is better suited as a power forward, which he played sparingly throughout the season, mainly back when Markkanen was injured and he was playing more at the 4. And when he has been playing there, he's been much more effective in getting cuts to the basket and even using some of his post-up game playing in that position. And the other thing is, well, if he's not playing well, say Billy Donovan is giving him the green light and actually wanting him to be more aggressive and playing with the ball, but Patrick Williams just doesn't feel comfortable with that yet or is too timid to, then you need to have him come off the bench. That's not a knock on Patrick Williams, but rather you need to start the guys who are going to be the most productive players on both ends of the floor, especially in a stretch where the Bulls are pushing for the playoffs. You know, at that point, you have to realize as a coach, Patrick is going to be a great player. We'll continue to develop him and his time will come, but right now isn't his time. So I'm holding Billy Donovan more accountable for Patrick's recent performance because I don't feel that he's utilizing him properly, and you shouldn't be starting a guy and playing him over 25 minutes a game if he's not going to continue being productive or if he's giving you single-digit scoring outings every night. And it's not like he's been that impactful on defense most recently either. I don't blame Arturas at all, not yet anyway, because it's not like the guys that went ahead of Williams have been superb by any means, unless you're looking at Tyrese Halliburton, who ended up falling all the way to 12th anyway. As I mentioned, I do think he's going to be a very great player in this league, Patrick Williams that is. And long term, he will be a huge win for the Bulls. I know it may not look like it right now, especially given the fact that he's only been averaging 7 points per game and 4 rebounds in his last 10 games. But I want to see what this kid will look like next season with a full off season and training camp under his belt. Hopefully, he'll bulk up a bit more as well and improve his offensive game even further, and he'll come out and have a stellar sophomore season. But yeah, I'm putting more of this on Billy Donovan, not with Patrick Williams or Arturas. It's on Billy to be using him properly in the lineup, and if he's not ready yet, which it doesn't look like he is, don't keep him in your starting lineup. Now, with all that being said, given the Bulls are likely out of the playoff picture and contention at this point, you almost have to think that maybe it makes sense to keep Williams and giving him some big minutes to help his overall development in a lost season. So I actually doubt that Donovan is all of a sudden just going to start, pulling him out of the starting lineup at this point with nearly 10 games left to go. That move likely would have happened 10 games previously if he was going to do it. It just doesn't make sense to me that he continues to start him when it looks like he's just not ready to be that type of player yet. Anyway, this doesn't take away my thought on Patrick Williams because I still think he's going to be a fine player in this league. I definitely see all-star potential in his future. And yes, I know as Bulls fans, we tend to hype this kid up a little bit, but I think even if you ask non-Bulls fans, they see a lot of potential in him. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a couple seasons, but he will get there. My hope is that Billy Donovan is the right coach to develop him in the way that he needs to be able to get the most out of him. I want to know what you guys think though. Who should be held accountable for Patrick's fairly quiet performance all season, but really more recently? Is it on Pat himself? Is it on Arturas? Is it on Billy Donovan? Maybe it's a combination of all three. Either way, let me know in the comments. I'll have a live game chat for the game against the Bucks tonight, so be on the lookout for that if you're interested. Be sure to subscribe as I post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in as always, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.